Disclaimer. The following video is mainly for comedic purposes and is not in any way, shape, or form endorsed by the actual Digino Gaming. All Digino Gaming logos, merchandise, channels, and etc. belong to Digino Gaming, /VGFacts, /Shane Gill, and whoever else is involved. Proceed at your own risk, or enjoyment. I don't know, it's your own personal preference. Don't look at me. You're in control of your choices here. You are in control of your choices, right? Right? Enjoy the video. Did you know that the Nintendo NX was originally supposed to be developed and marketed as a multi-use household appliance alongside being a game console? This can be proven by inserting a piece of bread into the cartridge slot and having the infrared sensor inside, which is mainly used to detect if anything other than an NX cartridge was inserted, actually detect it as bread. The player then gets presented with a dialogue box boasting jumbled characters with an option to say yes or no. The rough state of the option could imply that an alleged toaster feature was scrapped late in development. Saying no causes a bug to trigger the system to power down after 64 minutes, while saying yes causes the system to lock up. Even though the Nintendo NX got its name around mid to late 2015, its origins actually harken back to the ancient year of early 2014, where fans dubbed this the Fusion Phase. The Fusion Phase in itself was the result of the Wii U's sales not turning up so hot, which in itself was probably a result of Nintendo's misleading nomenclature of the said console, leaving consumers as confused as anyone would be after watching those scenes involving the architect in the Matrix sequels. According to a vague anonymous tip from some former Nintendo Power reporter or something, Nintendo was developing concepts for a portable and homebound system that would work in perfect tandem. See, with each other in one way or another. They would also be planned to be released at the same time, or at least it would have made sense to. The portable handheld system was codenamed Fusion DS, while the homebound system was codenamed Fusion Terminal. However, the Fusion part of the name didn't just specify that the two consoles would work with one another, or that they were fused with different gadgets and appliances. Rather, it was an implication of a whole new gaming experience that involved fusing and connecting. During E3 2015, around the time the NX was called the NX, Nintendo released patent notes for the Fusion DS to Mythbusters that showed what appeared to be a handheld device with LED screens that would attach to one another, with the said device being the base and the controller. Nintendo immediately elaborated on these notes, stating that they wanted to attempt to make an interactive trading card game element with these LED screens, or as they were called tabs, as in tablet, where players would then trade or collect them to attach to the Fusion DS base or to other screens that are linked to the base. Just imagine Scrabble Flash, except more advanced. This idea was scrapped for a lot of reasons. So many reasons, in fact. I can't exactly name them all, but I'll try my best. These reasons include tabs being too expensive to manufacture or buy, developers fearing that players would hoard the tabs for themselves, and fears of having the Fusion DS overheat from too many tabs being processed, where then the excessive heat, coupled with the Nintendium, would cause a plasmatic chain-reactive implosion into an explosion that would span through a 20-acre-long diameter. Millions are dead! In contrast to the Fusion DS, not much was really conceptualized for the Fusion Terminal, up until being codenamed NX, due to how much more faith it had put into its handheld counterpart. The decision to make the console a hybrid came from an NX engineer putting a new 3DS and a Wii U side by side, and then looking at a Prius just parked outside, and then looking back saying, "This can work!" Except, you know, more Japanese sounding. Eventually, the Fusion name was dropped due to potential QA testers trying to attempt fusion with each other. Looks like someone's been watching a little too much Dragon Ball Z. The name NX was just intended to be its final code name for the project before executives would come up with a definitive alias. But as fans became more enthralled with the system rumors during even more development, they kept guessing creative names as to what it could possibly be. These names include the Nexus, Nintendo XL, Nintendo 10, Nintendo Cross, the Nebula X, the NVIDIA X Communicator, Nintendo X Girlfriend Generator, Nude Exorcism, and then there were those who would give the system a human name such as Neil Xavier. Even Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto was guessing names since he was never told. Strange, huh? He thought this was fun, and so then he followed up with, why not just keep the name NX? During E3 2016, Nintendo wanted to show off the NX the day after Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was shown off. That was until a massive breach took place, causing an escort of among billions of people into another hall. The culprit in question snuck into the room where the NX was held, as shown in this footage that the culprit himself took and anonymously gave to us. When we interviewed him, the mystery culprit was quoted saying, "The prototype itself was heavily guarded. There were red caltrops on the floor that blended in with the carpet that I had to sneak around. My phone was low on battery, and the prototype itself was protected by some grainy bulletproof glass that I've never seen before. Was this some special Nintendium blended glass? I don't know." As I approached, an alarm sounded. The caltrops vanished, and I was able to get away safe and sound to my surprise. Nintendo's showcase of the NX was quietly cancelled, and the prototype was immediately shipped back to Nintendo without any other E3 staff knowing. From there on, they made do with what they had and ended up showing off more of Breath of the Wild instead. When it came to coming up with a slogan for the NX, Nintendo wanted to make it clear that this was, indeed, a revolutionary, a new way of playing. A lot of slogans were pitched to Nintendo, and a lot of them were rejected. In fact, there were more rejected slogans than there were my life regrets. These slogans span as far back as the Fusion phase. A few of many of these rejected slogans listed were, "You're not just playing games anymore." Rejected for unspecified reasons. "It works better than the Purge. A lot better." Which was rejected because it could be applied to literally everything, even to Time Warner Cable. "Fuse your fun." What's funny about this one is that Nintendo thought this was a perfect slogan, up until those dang QA testing kids tried fusing with each other. "Your second reality is always with you." This one was really close, but Nintendo wanted it conveyed a little differently. Then there was, Nintendo does what Nintendo didn't do in the past, because Nintendo couldn't do what they Nintended without the proper technology to Nintendo do so. It was good, but it was a mouthful, so they later just stuck with saying how you'll play next. At launch, the NX was initially supposed to have 3 launch titles featuring their flagship characters. They were able to pull through with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but because Nintendo was so busy making the NX so awesome, they had to attempt to get second and third party companies to make games featuring colorful characters that would help fill in the gaps. Ubisoft was straight on board with finally making Rayman 4 after seeing the NX before anybody else and being all like, "Oh? It's really great." For the third game, they wanted to use this opportunity to experiment by having another company bringing back an obscure platformer for a possible revival and to show off the hardware. Nintendo approached Retro Studios that they could make a Bubsy game since Accolade don't exist anymore. They denied so fast that Nintendo thought they approached Sega by accident. But nope. They just really didn't want to do it that badly. So next they went to Atari to see if they were looking to finally make Glover 2 a reality. And thus, Glover 2 went on to become one of the system's best sellers. When asked on their choice to make the console discless, they said it was to pursue a more efficient format. Though this wasn't always the case, as they did use CDs to test the hardware, Nintendo's original plan was to put games on vinyl records as a form of media storage. But when the employees went to test the record, they danced all night and partied like there was no tomorrow! Until they all passed out and woke up on the floor the next day. I think one of them was missing their appendix. One of the employees was quoted as saying, "This won't work." Also in Japanese. Next up, they tried Laserdisc. Impressed with the dual-sided capabilities they had, Nintendo immediately had the idea to put single-player features on one side and multiplayer/Wi-Fi features on the other side. They were dropped, however, due to, well, no, literally some clumsy bimbo actually dropped it on the floor, and now it's as useless as a laptop that just had an unfortunate arrangement with its neighborhood magnet. The NX uses cartridges, but they aren't exactly called cartridges, as that's a common misconception amongst the gaming community. These cartridges are actually an enlarged version of the DS's cards, though since they're too big to be deemed as cards, people still tend to call them cartridges. One of the NX's biggest concerns it ever got was with its controller, as it went through the strangest changes out of everything else on the system. Its first patent was close in design to the Wii U's, except that it only had 2 main buttons, and both the triggers on the top weren't just triggers, but were also scroll wheels. Many fans found this interesting, but then turned livid right away when Nintendo decided to grow a second head and show this malarkey of a buttonless controller? No buttons! Seriously, where on earth are the buttons? So livid that prisons that heard of the news began to riot all over the countries, hungry for the truth. But then, something amazing happened. All of a sudden, out of the horizon, it popped out what we wanted to hear that could send all third-party hardware manufacturers to our rescue. Detachable controllers! Basically, there were many controller patents for the NX until they settled on the two designs we have now today. The cheaper design with the screen and no face buttons, and the design with the face buttons that cost a little bit more. One of the controller's best known aspects is its incredibly accurate haptic feedback, though this level of accuracy was so hard to achieve that even an incident ensued from testing it. The incident in question occurred when a tester fell victim to the haptic feedback being so powerful that as soon as he hit a wall in a game, the joystick flung his whole body backwards and slammed him into a wall. He sustained many injuries. He could be very well on the verge of death as we speak. In terms of power and specs of the NX, during its development process, rumors have stated on a number of occasions that the console would be more powerful than the PS4 or Xbox One. And then there were those reports that claimed it would be underpowered of all things. Gasp, I know, peculiar, isn't it? The final specs ended up being 2,000 times more powerful than the Xbox One. Specifically. However, these specs were discovered by a data miner after Nintendo claimed it was 3,000 times more powerful. When asked about the fault in their stars, they explained that it was imperative for the NX to have that much power, and they have no idea what went wrong! Until Nintendo of America engineer Geb Enuel came out and said, "It was me. I'm the one responsible for the miscalculation. I tried to count to the specified specs, and I just couldn't. I just can't. I mean, I could have counted to 4,000, but it didn't feel right." This little mistake concerned Nintendo so much that they began to ponder if they could even make a console more advanced in the future. Was it even possible? Not long after the NX's release, a ton of companies began to output add-ons. Most of these add-ons were controllers with buttons in order to combat that horrible, buttonless standard the NX was bundled with, so that it would also be easier to more accurately develop games for. One add-on did stand out from all these, and not just because it wasn't another controller, more so it was because it was an add-on made by Nintendo themselves, set to legitimately be released with its intention in mind. The Interdimensional Region Unlocker. Nintendo has always been strict on region locking. They try their best to avoid smuggling both on software and hardware so that they wouldn't be used for any wrongdoings. With the Interdimensional Region Unlocker, players would have been able to purchase and download any game digitally, not just from other countries like Atlantis or Antarctica, but from other realms like Neverland, Oblivion, Pandaria, Retroville, Detroit, and the Death Star. The device is shown as being a fourth-dimensional quantum accelerator orb spiced with radio waves contained in a Nintendium casing with a USB 2.0 cable. They were pretty cheap to make, yet they had to be monstrously expensive given what they could be capable of doing. Nintendo decided to hold back on release of the add-on because they liked the reality they lived in and didn't want to see it be torn apart by a spatial rift before their very eyes. Hey, that doesn't mean we won't get it. Before its release, the NX has gotten a considerable amount of praise from companies like Ubisoft, who claimed it was really great, as explained earlier, and Take-Two Interactive, where the CEO himself said he was highly enthusiastic about the system. Aside from being user-friendly, the NX was also laughably easy to program games for. It was so easy, to the point where data miners found out that all of Halo's code could be copied and pasted as a digital download with completely remappable buttons that could be applied to any detachable controller built for the NX. Playable? Well, absolutely. Lawsuits? To my surprise, not many. And lastly, speaking of data miners, one was actually able to dig into the system's complicated software and hardware. Deep within the NX's code, there currently lies a heavily encrypted unused variable named Mode M. In a previous Did You Know Gaming episode, we mentioned how the Super Nintendo's Super FX chip has 8 graphical modes, modes 0 to 7. It's speculated in the data mining community that this mysterious Mode M could have very well have been a graphical mode that the NX can't access since the console is only 2,000 times more powerful than the Xbox One, and not 3,000 times. Thanks, Geb Enuel. Further rumors amongst the data mining community suggest that Mode M could have been a 4D graphical mode, or it could have just been a trap left there by engineers to make gamers look crazy. Pfft. Though there is one more rumor speculated between fans. The most popular rumor. The one rumor that would send the hype train straight out of retirement. Fans theorized that the M in Mode M stands for Melee, as in a mode to give the latest Super Smash Bros. Installment melee physics. After this theory became quickly mainstream, fake guides on how to unlock this Mode M quickly started to circulate the internet, and some of them kind of make sense. Like, High Five Master Hand and Crazy Hand 10 times each using Peach's Slap and beat them. Knee a level 9 CPU as Captain Falcon straight into the core of the Final Destination stage. Perform a Lombo combo with the current Smash physics. And then there's that one where it's like, spike a player onto Randall 10 times, quit the match within 5 seconds of the 10th spike, and finally whisper sweet blessings into your NX. That last one? Oh, it didn't work. I figured that out the hard way. Time Magazine called it the Luigi in Super Mario 64 of our time. The data mining community then quickly deemed that possibility of Mode M's purpose to be impractical, since it would be absolutely silly for a game mode to be programmed onto the console rather than the game itself. That's all for today, but as mentioned before in the disclaimer, I am not affiliated with the actual Did You Know Gaming. But if you want real facts and trivia, don't forget to subscribe to their channel. Consider it a shout-out, if you will, except they have more subscribers than me. If you like this video, then give it a like. However, if this video made you confused, I'm afraid to say, but there isn't a button for that. Thanks for your attention toward this screen.